She rushed one of her twin daughters to the ER. Doctor who saved her was her ex-husband, who didn't know they existed. The doctor stood frozen in the hospital waiting room, his surgical scrubs still stained with blood. His hands trembled as he stared at the woman sitting before him, then at the little girl sleeping on the couch. His voice came out broken, barely a whisper. "Are they mine?" The woman's eyes filled with tears. Her whole body seemed to collapse inward. "Yes." The word hung in the air between them like a guillotine. His legs gave out. He sat down hard in the plastic chair, his head dropping into his hands. When he looked up again, his face was wet with tears. 6 years. I missed 6 years. I know. You don't know. His voice cracked. You can't know what it feels like to find out you have children and that you missed everything. First steps, first words, first days of school. You were there. You got to have all of it. I got nothing. I tried to find you, Callum. I tried. Did you? Did you really? But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Because before this moment of devastating revelation in a Denver hospital waiting room, before the tears and the accusations and the truth that couldn't be taken back, there was a desperate drive through dark streets with a dying child in the back seat. There was a mother's scream for help. There was an impossible reunion 7 years in the making. And there were 2 little girls who had no idea their entire world was about to change forever. This is a story about the secrets we keep to protect ourselves, about the price we pay for those secrets, and about how sometimes the worst moments of our lives lead us exactly where we're supposed to be. So let me take you back to where it really started, to a Tuesday evening in late September when Autumn Vale's carefully constructed world began to fall apart. The kitchen timer beeped, pulling Autumn's attention away from the case files spread across her small dining table. She worked from home 2 days a week, a privilege she'd negotiated carefully. With the law firm after 6 years of proving herself indispensable, it meant she could pick up Hadley and Rowan from school herself on Tuesdays and Thursdays, instead of relying on the after-school program that cost almost as much as her rent. "Mommy, can we have extra cheese?" Hadley called from the living room where both girls were sprawled on the carpet, coloring. "Sure, baby." Autumn pulled the homemade pizza from the oven, the smell of melted mozzarella filling the small apartment. It wasn't fancy, this life she'd built. Her apartment on Sherman Street was tiny, just 2 bedrooms with barely enough room for the second-hand furniture she'd collected over the years. But it was clean. It was safe. It was theirs. Dinner time, girls. 2 identical faces looked up from their coloring books. At 6 years old, Hadley and Rowan were mirror images of each other, dark curls that seemed to have a mind of their own, catching the light in shades of deep brown and black, hazel eyes with distinctive rings of gold around the iris, the same spattering of freckles across their noses, the same dimple in their left cheek when they smiled. They looked nothing like Autumn with her straight auburn hair and green eyes. They looked like their father. Every single day, Autumn saw Callum Thorne in their faces, and every single day, her heart broke a little over the choice she'd made 7 years ago. "I'm not hungry," Hadley said quietly. Autumn's hand paused over the pizza cutter. Hadley was always hungry. She was the twin who asked for seconds, who snuck snacks, who woke up on Saturday mornings demanding pancakes. "You feeling okay, sweetheart?" Hadley shrugged, climbing onto one of the mismatched chairs at their small kitchen table. "My head hurts." "Since when?" "Since school. Since after lunch, maybe." Autumn pressed the back of her hand to Hadley's forehead. "No fever. Probably just tired. Kindergarten was a big adjustment, even 2 months in. Eat a little bit and then you can lie down before bath time, okay?" "Okay." Rowan climbed into the chair next to her sister, immediately reaching for the biggest slice. "I got a gold star today on my reading worksheet." "That's wonderful, Ro. What was the story about?" "A dog who went to the moon." "Dogs can't go to the moon," Hadley mumbled. "This one did. He had a rocket ship. That's not real. It's a story, Hadley. Stories don't have to be real." Autumn smiled, listening to her daughter's familiar bickering as she served them pizza and baby carrots. This was her life. Small moments, simple meals. 2 little girls who were her entire world. She'd given up a lot to protect this quiet existence. Her marriage, her pride, the chance to tell the truth. But as she watched Hadley push food around her plate, barely eating, a small knot of worry formed in her stomach. "Baby, does your head hurt a lot, or just a little?" "A lot." Hadley's voice was smaller now, like something's pushing on it. "Where exactly?" Hadley touched the back of her head, near the base of her skull. Probably just a headache. Kids got headaches. Autumn got headaches all the time from staring at legal documents for hours. She'd give Hadley some children's pain reliever after dinner and make sure she got to bed early. After dinner, Autumn ran a bath while the girls picked out pajamas. Rowan chose the set with unicorns. Hadley moved slowly, like each motion took effort, and picked the purple ones with stars. "Can we skip bath tonight, Mommy?" Hadley asked. "I just want to sleep." "No, baby. Quick bath, then bed. I promise it'll be fast." But the bath water seemed to make it worse. Hadley sat in the tub with her eyes closed, her face scrunched up in pain. "Mommy, it really hurts now." "Okay, sweetheart. Let's get you out." Autumn wrapped Hadley in a towel, her worry growing. Maybe this wasn't just a headache. Maybe she should call the pediatrician's after-hours line. She was helping Hadley into her pajamas when it happened. Hadley's eyes rolled back. Her small body went rigid. Then she collapsed like someone had cut her strings. "Hadley!" Autumn caught her before she hit the floor, her heart slamming against her ribs. Hadley's eyes were closed. Her face was pale, too pale. "Hadley, baby, wake up. Wake up right now." Nothing. No response. No movement. Autumn's training from a decade ago, from the 2 years she'd worked as a medical secretary before law school consumed her life, kicked in. She checked for breathing. Shallow but present. Pulse racing but steady. But Hadley wouldn't wake up. Wouldn't respond to her name, to touch, to anything. Rowan appeared in the bathroom doorway, her wet hair dripping onto her unicorn pajamas. What's wrong with Hadley? Autumn's mind raced. Emergency room. Now. She scooped Hadley into her arms, her daughter's head lolling against her shoulder. "Rowan, baby, we need to go to the hospital right now. Put on your shoes, the ones by the door, fast as you can. Is Hadley going to die?" The question hit Autumn like a physical blow. "No. No, baby. The doctors are going to help her, but we need to go right now." Rowan's face crumpled, tears spilling down her cheeks, but she ran for her shoes. Good girl. Brave girl. Autumn didn't bother with shoes for herself or for Hadley. Didn't grab her purse. Didn't lock the door behind her. She just ran, Hadley limp in her arms, Rowan racing behind her down the 2 flights of stairs to the parking lot. Her Honda Civic sat under a broken streetlight. Autumn wrenched open the back door and laid Hadley across the seat. No time for the booster seat. No time for seat belts. Rowan climbed in beside her sister, and Autumn slammed the door and threw herself into the driver's seat. The engine turned over on the second try. Autumn's hands shook so badly she could barely grip the steering wheel. "Please, God. Please, let her be okay. Please." She tore out of the parking lot, tires squealing. The streets of Denver blurred past. Traffic lights. Stop signs. None of it mattered. Her daughter was unconscious in the back seat, and every second counted. "Mommy, Hadley won't wake up." Rowan's voice was thick with tears. "I keep saying her name and she won't wake up. She's going to be okay, baby. We're almost there. We're almost to the hospital." Autumn didn't know if that was true. She didn't know anything except that her child was dying, and she needed help, and nothing else in the entire world mattered. Denver General Hospital rose up ahead, a massive complex of buildings lit up against the night sky. Autumn zeroed in on the emergency entrance, the red emergency sign like a beacon. She pulled into the circular drive, not bothering to find a parking space, just abandoning the car right there in front of the doors. She yanked open the back door and gathered Hadley into her arms. Rowan scrambled out behind her, still crying. The automatic doors slid open. Bright lights, antiseptic smell, people in scrubs moving around a nurse's station. Autumn didn't walk. She ran. "Help! Someone help me. My daughter won't wake up." Her voice came out as a scream, raw and desperate. Every head in the emergency room turned toward her. A nurse stood up from behind the desk, her eyes widening. A security guard started moving in her direction. Other nurses appeared from examination rooms. But faster than all of them, a tall figure in navy blue scrubs came through a set of double doors marked trauma. He moved with the kind of swift purpose that spoke of years of training, of countless emergencies, of a man who knew exactly what to do when seconds mattered. "Bring her here," he commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. Autumn turned toward the voice, toward the doctor who could save her daughter's life. And the world stopped. Time stopped. Her heart stopped. Because the doctor standing in front of her Reaching out to take Hadley from her arms was Callum Thorne, her ex-husband, the man she'd loved with everything in her at 23, the man she'd divorced at 25, the man she'd spent 6 years hiding from, the man who had no idea the unconscious little girl in her arms was his daughter. Their eyes met for exactly 2 seconds. She saw the shock of recognition hit him, saw his eyes widen, saw his mouth open slightly as if to speak her name. But then his training took over. His gaze moved from her face to Hadley, and everything else disappeared. "Give her to me," he said, his voice steady now, professional. Autumn's arms didn't want to let go, but she made them. She released her daughter into Callum's arms and watched him cradle Hadley against his chest with a gentleness that made her want to sob. How long has she been unconscious? He was already moving toward the trauma bay, his long strides eating up the distance. Autumn and Rowan hurried behind him. 5 minutes, maybe 7. I don't know exactly. We were getting ready for bed and she collapsed. Any recent head injuries? Falls? No, nothing. Fever? Vomiting? No fever. She said her head hurt. She said it hurt really bad, that something was pushing on it. They burst through the doors into the trauma bay. Callum laid Hadley on a gurney, his hands already moving over her with practiced efficiency. A team of nurses appeared around him like they'd been summoned. "Get me a crash cart. Call for a CT scan. And page neurosurgery." He pulled a small flashlight from his pocket and lifted Hadley's eyelids one at a time, shining the light directly into her eyes. Pupils unequal and dilated, unresponsive to painful stimuli. Based on presentation and symptoms, I'm thinking cerebral aneurysm. The medical terms flew over Autumn's head, but she caught the important ones. Cerebral, brain, aneurysm. Those were bad words. Those were words that meant her daughter was in serious danger. "What does that mean?" Autumn's voice came out strangled. "What's wrong with her?" Callum didn't look at her. He kept his focus on Hadley, on the monitors that nurses were hooking up to her small body. "I think a blood vessel in her brain ruptured. We need imaging to confirm, but if I'm right, she needs surgery immediately." Surgery. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. One of the nurses gently touched Autumn's shoulder. "Ma'am, we need you to step back so we can work. I'm not leaving her. You're not leaving the hospital. Just this room. We need space." Autumn felt Rowan pressed against her side, trembling. She looked down at her other daughter's terrified face and forced herself to take a step back. Then another. "I'll take care of her," Callum said. And finally, he looked at Autumn, really looked at her. And in his eyes, she saw recognition, confusion, 1,000 questions, but also a promise. "I'll take care of her." Then he turned back to Hadley, and the medical team surrounded the gurney. A nurse in pink scrubs was guiding Autumn and Rowan out of the trauma bay, through the doors into the hallway. "There's a private waiting room right here." The nurse's voice was kind, practiced at delivering comfort in the middle of crisis. "The doctor will come talk to you as soon as he knows more." The waiting room was small. 4 chairs upholstered in industrial blue fabric, a table with old magazines, a box of tissues, a television mounted on the wall playing the news with the sound off. This was the room they used for serious cases. Autumn knew that instinctively. This wasn't the big general waiting room with dozens of people and minor emergencies. This was the room where they put families when things might go very wrong. She sank into one of the chairs and pulled Rowan onto her lap. Her daughter was too big for lap sitting, really, all long legs and sharp elbows, but she curled into Autumn anyway, making herself small. "Is Hadley going to die?" Rowan whispered against Autumn's neck. "No, baby. The doctor is going to fix her." But Autumn didn't know if that was true. She didn't know anything anymore. Her carefully ordered world had just shattered into 1,000 pieces. Callum was here, in Denver, working in this hospital. After 7 years of silence, after building an entire separate life, after convincing herself that keeping the secret was the right choice, here he was. And he'd seen Rowan. He'd looked right at her. Did he notice? Did he see himself in Rowan's face the way Autumn saw it every single day? Not yet. He'd been too focused on Hadley, on the medical emergency. But eventually, he would notice. Eventually, he would see that Rowan had his eyes, his hair, his facial structure. Eventually, he would ask how old the girls were and do the math and realize the truth that Autumn had kept hidden for 6 years. But none of that mattered right now. All that mattered was Hadley. All that mattered was that her daughter survived. Autumn wrapped her arms around Rowan and started counting. Ceiling tiles. 12 of them. She counted them again to make sure. Still 12. She counted the chairs. 4. The magazines on the table. 7. Rowan's breaths against her chest. In and out. In and out. Time moved like cold honey. Each minute stretched into an eternity. The clock on the wall ticked so loudly it seemed to echo in the small room. "Mommy, I'm scared," Rowan whispered. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." Have you ever felt time stop when someone you love is in danger? Have you ever sat in a hospital waiting room counting your own heartbeats because it's the only way to prove you're still alive? Drop a comment below if you've been there. If you know what it feels like when your whole world hangs in the balance. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. A woman in scrubs came in to ask Autumn for insurance information, and Autumn realized she'd left her purse at home. Left her wallet. Left everything. "I don't have it with me. My daughter collapsed, and I just ran." "That's okay. We can sort it out later." The woman's smile was kind. "What's your daughter's name?" "Hadley. Hadley Grace Vale." "And you are?" "Autumn Vale. I'm her mother." The woman wrote on her clipboard. "How old is Hadley?" 6. She just turned 6 in February. The woman nodded and left, and Autumn realized she'd just set something in motion, because Callum would see that chart eventually, would see Hadley's birth date, would do the math. February. Hadley and Rowan had been born on February 14th, Valentine's Day. Autumn had gone into labor at 38 weeks, 2 years to the day after she'd married Callum in a simple courthouse ceremony. The divorce had been finalized in late October 7 years ago. By December, Autumn had known something was wrong. She'd been exhausted all the time, nauseous every morning. She'd taken a pregnancy test on December 23rd. Positive. She'd stared at that little plus sign for an hour, her whole world rearranging itself. Callum was in Baltimore by then, fully immersed in his prestigious neurosurgery residency at Johns Hopkins, the program he'd chosen over their marriage, the opportunity he'd said he couldn't let anything derail. "Not even us," he'd said during their final fight. "I can't let anything derail this opportunity, Autumn. Not even us." So she'd made a choice. She wouldn't tell him. She wouldn't be the obligation that ruined his dream. She wouldn't force him to choose between his children and his career, knowing he might choose the career and resent them all forever. She'd found out 2 weeks later that she was carrying twins. That choice had suddenly become twice as heavy, twice as permanent. Her mother had been dying then. Stage 4 breast cancer eating her alive. Autumn had moved back into her childhood home to take care of her, had worked her paralegal job during the day and come home to help her mother at night, had hidden the pregnancy under baggy clothes until she couldn't anymore. Her mother passed away when the twins were 6 months old. She'd gotten to hold them, to know them, but barely. And she'd asked Autumn, near the end, why she hadn't told Callum. "Because he made his choice," Autumn had said, "and I made mine." But sitting in this hospital waiting room with one daughter on her lap and the other fighting for her life, Autumn wondered if she'd made the wrong choice, if pride and hurt and fear had cost her daughters their father, if Callum's skilled hands working to save Hadley's life should have been in their lives all along. The waiting room door opened. Autumn's head snapped up. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Callum stood in the doorway. He'd pulled off his surgical cap, and his dark hair was disheveled. There were lines of exhaustion around his eyes that hadn't been there 7 years ago. He looked older, tired, but still unmistakably him. "The imaging confirmed it," he said, his voice carefully professional. "Your daughter has a ruptured cerebral aneurysm. A weak blood vessel in her brain burst and caused bleeding. It's extremely rare in children her age, but it does happen." Autumn couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. "I need to take her into surgery immediately to stop the bleeding and repair the vessel." Callum's voice was steady, calm, the voice of a man who delivered this kind of news 100 times. "Without surgical intervention, the pressure from the bleeding will cause permanent brain damage or death. With surgery, her chances of full recovery are good, very good. But I need your consent, and I need it now." "Yes." The word came out as barely a whisper. Autumn cleared her throat and tried again. "Yes. Do whatever you need to do. Save her." Callum nodded. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket and handed it to her, along with a pen. "I need you to sign this consent form. Autumn's hands shook so badly she could barely hold the pen. She scribbled her name across the bottom of the form without reading any of it. She didn't care what it said. She would sign anything if it meant saving Hadley. Callum took the form back. His eyes moved past Autumn to Rowan, still curled in her lap. He'd been so focused on the medical emergency before, but now he really looked at Rowan, really saw her. Autumn watched his expression change, watched confusion flicker across his face as he took in Rowan's dark curls, her hazel eyes with those gold rings, the shape of her face, her nose, the dimple in her cheek. He stared at Rowan for a long moment. Then his gaze shifted back to Autumn. How old is she? His voice was different now, quieter, less professional. 6. They're twins. Callum's face went pale. She watched him doing the math in his head. 6 years old, born 9 months after the divorce. The timeline written clearly in the ages of the children in front of him. His mouth opened, closed. He seemed to struggle for words. But then a nurse appeared in the doorway behind him. Dr. Thorne, the OR is ready. The doctor in him took over again. He straightened his shoulders, gave one sharp nod. I have to go, he said, looking at Autumn. We'll talk after. It wasn't a question. It was a promise. Or maybe a threat. Then he was gone, and Autumn was left alone with Rowan and the weight of 6 years of secrets pressing down on her chest. The surgery took 4 hours. 4 hours of sitting in that small room, watching the minutes crawl by on the wall clock. 4 hours of Rowan asking questions that Autumn couldn't answer. 4 hours of imagining every possible outcome and trying not to fall apart. Rowan eventually cried herself into exhaustion and fell asleep on the small couch, her body curled into a tight ball. Autumn sat beside her, stroking her daughter's dark curls, and let her mind spiral through every memory she'd tried to bury. Meeting Callum in college, she'd been a junior, working part-time at the campus library to pay for textbooks. He'd been a pre-med senior, intense and brilliant and completely focused on following in his late father's footsteps to become a neurosurgeon. She'd dropped an entire cart of books trying to reshelf them, and he'd helped her pick them up. Had made her laugh with some terrible joke about brain surgery. Had asked her out for coffee that turned into dinner, that turned into 3 years of believing love could conquer anything. They'd gotten married the week after her graduation. A simple courthouse ceremony because they were young and broke and it seemed romantic. Autumn had taken a job as a paralegal at a small firm. Callum had started medical school at the University of Colorado. They'd lived in a tiny apartment with second-hand furniture and been happier than Autumn had ever imagined possible. But medical school was brutal. Callum studied constantly, slept barely at all. Autumn worked long hours to support them both. They started seeing each other less, talking less. The easy joy of those early days faded into exhaustion and stress. Then came the residency applications. Callum applied to programs all over the country, chasing the most prestigious opportunities. Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, Massachusetts General. Autumn had assumed they'd end up somewhere together, that wherever he matched, she'd find a job and they'd make it work. But then her mother got sick. Breast cancer, stage 4, metastasized to her bones and liver. 6 months to live, maybe a year if she was lucky. And Callum matched at Johns Hopkins, 3,000 miles away in Baltimore, the most prestigious neurosurgery residency program in the country. You have to come with me, he'd said. I can't leave my mother. She's dying, Callum. She has your aunt. She has hospice care. She has me. I'm her daughter. I'm all she has left. The fight that followed had torn them apart. Words said in anger and fear that neither of them could take back. You're asking me to give up everything I've worked for, Callum had said. And you're asking me to abandon my dying mother. It's only a few years. You can visit. We can make it work long distance. You know we can't. You'll be working 100 hours a week. I'll never see you. And my mother will die alone. So, I'm supposed to give up my dream? Turn down Johns Hopkins? I'm not asking you to give up anything. I'm asking you to wait. Apply to Colorado programs. There are good residencies here. Not like Hopkins. You know there aren't. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and my mother is dying once in a lifetime. She'll never get better. This is it. These are her last months, and you want me to leave her? I can't let anything derail this, Autumn. Not even us. Those words had been the end. Not even us. Like their marriage was just another obstacle to overcome on his path to professional success. Autumn had filed for divorce the next week. Callum had signed the papers without fighting, had left for Baltimore in June, and Autumn had moved back into her childhood home to take care of her dying mother. By December, she'd known she was pregnant. By January, she'd known it was twins. By February, she'd given birth to 2 beautiful daughters who looked exactly like their father, and she'd kept it secret, had convinced herself it was the right choice, that Callum had made it clear where his priorities lay, that she wouldn't burden him with children he never asked for. But now, sitting in this hospital while he worked to save their daughter's life, the choice felt different. Felt selfish maybe, or maybe self-protective. She didn't know anymore. The waiting room door opened. Autumn jerked upright, her heart in her throat. Callum stood there in fresh scrubs. The ones he'd been wearing before had been stained with blood, Hadley's blood. But these were clean, and his face, though exhausted, was calm. "She's okay," he said. Autumn's breath left her in a rush. Her whole body sagged with relief so intense it was almost painful. "The surgery went very well. I was able to repair the aneurysm and stop the bleeding. She's in recovery now. She'll need to stay in the hospital for observation probably a week, but she's going to make a full recovery." Tears streamed down Autumn's face. She couldn't stop them, couldn't speak, could only nod and cry and try to breathe. "Can I see her?" "In about an hour. She needs to wake up from the anesthesia first. A nurse will come get you." "Okay, thank you. Thank you so much." Callum nodded. Then he looked at Rowan again, still sleeping on the couch. His expression was unreadable. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "I know. Not now. After you see Hadley. After she's stable. But soon. Autumn. We need to talk soon." He turned to leave. "Callum, wait." He stopped, turned back to her. "Why are you in Denver? I thought you were at Johns Hopkins." Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe, or regret. "I left Hopkins after a year. My mother had a stroke. I came home to Seattle to take care of her. She passed away 2 years ago. I moved here to Denver last year." Autumn felt like she'd been punched. "I didn't know. I'm sorry." "How would you have known? We haven't spoken in 7 years. The words hung between them, heavy with accusation and hurt and all the things they'd left unsaid. "I tried to call you once," Autumn said, "early on, when I first found out I was pregnant. I called the number you'd given me. It said it was disconnected. I changed my number when I moved to Baltimore, got a new phone. I didn't think to tell you because we were divorced, and I thought we were done." "We were done, were we?" Callum's voice was sharp now. "Because it seems like maybe we weren't as done as I thought." Before Autumn could respond, before she could figure out what to say to that, a nurse appeared behind Callum. "Dr. Thorne, the patient in room 4 needs a consult." Callum's jaw tightened. He looked at Autumn one more time. "We'll talk later." Then he was gone. Autumn sat back down and put her face in her hands. Her whole body was shaking. Hadley was okay. That was all that mattered. Her daughter was going to live. But everything else in her life had just become impossibly complicated. An hour later, a different nurse came to get them. A kind-faced woman with gray hair and warm brown eyes. "You can see Hadley now. She's awake and asking for you." Autumn gently shook Rowan awake. "Come on, baby. We can see Hadley." Rowan's eyes opened, confused and puffy from crying. "Is she okay?" "She's going to be fine. Come on." They followed the nurse down a series of hallways, through double doors, into the pediatric intensive care unit. The nurse stopped outside a room with glass walls. "She's in here. You can stay as long as you like." Autumn pushed open the door. Hadley was in a hospital bed that seemed too big for her small body. Monitors beeped softly, and 4-line ran from her arm to a bag hanging on a pole. A white bandage was wrapped around her head, covering the surgical site, but her eyes were open. And when she saw Autumn, she smiled. "Mommy." Autumn rushed to the bedside and took Hadley's hand, careful not to disturb the 4th. "Hi, sweet girl. How do you feel?" "Tired, and my head hurts." "I know, baby, but the doctor fixed you. You're going to be okay." Rowan climbed carefully onto the bed next to her sister. "I was so scared." "Me too," Hadley whispered. The door opened behind them. Autumn turned. Callum stood in the doorway. He was holding a tablet, probably Hadley's chart. His eyes went to the monitors first, checking vitals, Then to Hadley. "How are you feeling?" he asked, his voice gentle. "My head hurts," Hadley said. "That's normal after the kind of surgery you had. The nurses are going to give you medicine to help with the pain." Hadley looked at him with wide eyes. "Are you my doctor?" "I am. My name is Dr. Thorne, but you can call me Callum if you want. You fixed my brain?" "I did. Thank you." Callum's expression crumbled for just a second before he rebuilt it into professional composure. "You're very welcome." He looked at Autumn, and she saw the questions in his eyes, saw the confusion and the hurt and the desperate need to understand. She gave him a small nod. Later. They would talk later. After Hadley was stable. After Rowan was somewhere safe. After Autumn could find the words to explain 6 years of silence. Callum nodded back and left the room. Over the next few hours, nurses came and went, checking Hadley's vitals, adjusting her medication, asking questions. A neurosurgeon who wasn't Callum came by to examine her and pronounced himself pleased with her progress. Rowan curled up in a chair beside the bed and fell asleep again. Exhaustion was catching up to all of them. Around midnight, there was a soft knock on the door. Autumn looked up. Callum stood there, changed out of his scrubs now and wearing jeans and a dark sweater. His shift must have ended. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly, his eyes moving to make sure Hadley was asleep. "There's a family consultation room down the hall." Autumn looked at her daughters, both sleeping peacefully. "I don't want to leave them. I asked the nurse to keep an eye on them. We'll be right down the hall." 5 minutes. Autumn stood slowly, her body stiff from hours in the uncomfortable hospital chair. She followed Callum out of the room, down the hallway, into a small room with a table and chairs. Callum closed the door behind them, turned to face her. "Tell me the truth, Autumn. Are they mine?" She met his eyes and gave him the truth she'd been hiding for 6 years. Yes. The words seemed to hit him like a physical blow. He stumbled backward, sat down hard in one of the chairs, put his head in his hands. When he looked up, tears streamed down his face. "Why?" The word came out broken. "Why didn't you tell me?" Autumn sank into a chair across from him. "Because you made it very clear that nothing could interfere with your residency. I wasn't going to be the obligation that ruined your dream. My children aren't an obligation." His voice cracked on the word children. "You said nothing could derail your opportunity, not even us." "Those were your exact words, Callum. I was 27 years old and angry that you wouldn't come to Baltimore with me. I didn't mean that I didn't want children. I didn't even know you were pregnant, because we were divorced. Because you left for Johns Hopkins and never looked back. I looked back every single day." Callum's voice rose. Autumn could see the anger and hurt warring in his expression. "I thought about you constantly, wondered if I'd made the wrong choice, but I thought you wanted nothing to do with me. I thought we were done. We were done. We had children together." Callum stood up, pacing the small room. "How does that not change things? How does that not warrant a phone call or an email or something to let me know I was going to be a father? I tried to call you. Once. Your number was disconnected. Once. You tried once. You were in Baltimore living your dream. I was in Denver alone and pregnant and terrified. My mother was dying. I had no money, no support, no idea how I was going to raise a baby by myself. And then I found out it was twins and I completely fell apart. So you decided I didn't deserve to know. I decided you'd made your choice and I'd make mine." They stared at each other across the small room. 7 years of hurt and anger and regret filling the space between them. "I left Hopkins after 1 year," Callum said finally, his voice quieter now. "My mother had a massive stroke. She needed round-the-clock care. I couldn't be 3,000 miles away working 100 hours a week. So I withdrew from the program and moved back to Seattle. I didn't know. How would you? We weren't speaking. You'd moved on with your life, had my children, and didn't tell me. I thought I was protecting them. Protecting you. From what? From being resented. From having a father who chose them out of obligation instead of love. From the possibility that you'd choose your career anyway and break their hearts." Callum's face twisted with pain. "You don't know me at all if you think I would have chosen anything over my children. I knew the man I was married to. The man who said his opportunity at Johns Hopkins was more important than us. I said that in the middle of the worst fight of our marriage when we were both saying things we didn't mean. Did you mean it when you signed the divorce papers?" The question hung in the air between them. Yes, Callum said finally, because I thought you wanted the divorce. I thought you wanted to move on. If I'd known you were pregnant, everything would have been different. Would it? Autumn's voice was sharp. Would you really have given up Johns Hopkins for us? Callum was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, he admitted. And maybe that's what you were afraid of, that I'd resent you for making me choose. I was afraid of a lot of things. Afraid you'd leave. Afraid you'd stay but wish you hadn't. Afraid our daughters would grow up feeling like they ruined your life. Our daughters. Callum said the words like he was testing them out. I have daughters. 2 of them. Yes. Tell me about them. Please. Tell me everything. So Autumn did. She told him about the pregnancy, about being alone and terrified and working up until the day she went into labor, about her mother dying when the twins were 6 months old, about the years of struggling to make ends meet, of working full-time, while raising 2 babies, of sleepless nights and endless worry. She told him about Hadley's fearless personality, how she made friends with everyone, how she played soccer with reckless abandon, about Rowan's quiet thoughtfulness, her love of books, the way she observed everything, and everyone with those hazel eyes that looked exactly like Callum's. She told him about first steps taken while she was at work and missed by everyone, about first words that were mama and more and no, about first days of school when they'd both cried and mama and more and no, about first days of school when they'd both cried and clung to her and then run off to play the moment they saw other children. Callum listened to every word. Tears ran down his face unchecked. I missed everything, he said when she finished. 6 years. Their entire lives up until now. First birthdays. First Christmases. I missed all of it. I know. You don't know. His voice broke. You were there. You got to have all of it. Every moment, every milestone, every memory. I got nothing. Autumn's own tears started again. I'm sorry. I thought I was doing the right thing. The right thing would have been telling me the truth, giving me the choice. Even if I made the wrong one, even if I chose Hopkins and regretted it, I deserved to know I had children. You're right. The admission seemed to take something out of both of them. They sat in exhausted silence. What are their names? Callum asked finally. Hadley Grace and Rowan Elizabeth. Elizabeth. That was my mother's name. I know. I remembered. Callum closed his eyes. My mother died never knowing she had grandchildren. I'm sorry. Stop saying you're sorry. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't give me back 6 years. I know. But I don't know what else to say. Callum stood up, started pacing again. I want to be part of their lives, he said. I know I have no legal rights. I know you've been their only parent for 6 years. But please, Autumn, please let me know them. Let me be their father. Autumn looked at him, at the desperation in his face, at the grief and the hope and the fear all mixed together. Okay. Yes, you can be part of their lives, but we do this carefully, slowly. They don't understand what a father is yet. We have to think about what's best for them, not us. I'll do whatever you want, whatever they need. Just please don't shut me out anymore. There are rules. Callum nodded. Tell me, you can't confuse them. You can't make promises you won't keep. If you say you're coming to see them, you have to come, every single time. I will. You can't show up whenever you want and then disappear for weeks. They need consistency. They need routine. I understand. And you can't try to take them from me. Autumn's voice shook. I know you're a doctor. I know you could probably afford lawyers. But if you try to take my daughters, I will fight you with everything I have. Callum crossed the room and knelt in front of her chair. He didn't touch her, but his eyes held hers. I would never do that, Autumn. Never. You're their mother. You raised them. You kept them alive and healthy and happy. I'm not here to take them away. I'm here to be part of their lives. That's all. Do you promise? I promise. Autumn nodded slowly. Okay, then yes. You can be their father. Callum's shoulders sagged with relief. When can I see them? I mean really see them. Not as their doctor, but as their dad. Let's wait until Hadley is better. Until she's home and recovering. Then we'll figure out how to tell them who you really are. Callum nodded. He stood up slowly. Thank you, he said quietly, for letting me in. I know I don't deserve it after missing so much. They deserve to know their father. They stood there in awkward silence, 7 years of history and hurt between them. "I should get back to them," Autumn said finally. Of course. They walked back to Hadley's room together. Both girls were still sleeping. Rowan in the chair, Hadley in the hospital bed, looking so small under the white blankets. Callum stood in the doorway, just watching them. "They're beautiful," he whispered. "Yeah, they are. I'll come check on Hadley tomorrow, during my shift." "Okay." "And Autumn," he turned to look at her, "I meant what I said. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here now. For them. For as long as they'll let me." Then he left, and Autumn was alone with her daughters, and the weight of secrets finally revealed. She sank into the chair beside Hadley's bed and watched her daughters sleep. Outside the window, Denver's lights glittered against the darkness. Somewhere in this hospital, Callum was probably sitting in a doctor's lounge or a break room, trying to process the fact that he'd just discovered he had 2 6-year-old daughters. Autumn didn't know what came next, didn't know how to navigate co-parenting with a man she'd once loved desperately and then divorced. Didn't know how to explain to 2 6-year-olds that the doctor who saved Hadley's life was their father. But for now, Hadley was safe. That was all that mattered. The rest they would figure out one day at a time. If this story is hitting you in the feels, if you've ever faced an impossible choice or kept a secret that felt too big to share, drop a comment below. Let's talk about it. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, because this story is just getting started. Part 2 is coming, and you won't want to miss what happens when Callum starts building a relationship with the daughters he never knew existed. Hadley stayed in the hospital for 5 days. 5 days of nurses coming and going, of medication schedules and neurological checks, of Callum appearing multiple times per shift to examine Hadley with a gentleness that made Autumn's chest ache. He brought Hadley a stuffed dinosaur on day 2. She named it Dr. Rex and wouldn't let it out of her sight. He brought Rowan a stack of books on day 3 and sat with her in the hospital cafeteria, listening to her read aloud while Autumn stayed with Hadley. On day 4, he brought both girls coloring books and sat on the floor of Hadley's hospital room coloring. Alongside them, his long legs folded awkwardly, his tongue caught between his teeth in concentration, Autumn watched from her chair beside the bed, watched her daughters warm to this kind stranger who was their father, and felt something crack open in her chest. Something that felt like grief and hope all tangled together. The girls didn't know yet. Autumn had asked Callum to wait, and he'd agreed. Right now, he was just Dr. Thorne, who had saved Hadley's life. Just the nice doctor who brought presents and made them laugh. But soon, they'd have to tell them the truth. And Autumn had no idea how. On day 5, the neurosurgeon cleared Hadley for discharge. "She can go home today," he told Autumn. "She'll need to take it easy for a few weeks. No rough play, no sports. Follow up in my office in 2 weeks. But she's healing beautifully." That afternoon, Autumn was packing up their things when Callum appeared in the doorway. "I heard she's being discharged." "Yes, we're going home this afternoon. Can the first drive you?" "You didn't drive here, did you?" "You left your car in the emergency bay." Autumn had completely forgotten about her car. A friend from work, Paige, had brought her purse and phone from her apartment days ago. But the car had been towed from the emergency entrance that first night. "I was going to call a rideshare. Please, let me drive you. It's the least I can do." So Callum drove them home in his sensible sedan. Hadley in her booster seat, still wearing the hospital pajamas because Autumn hadn't thought to bring clothes. Rowan in the other booster seat, asking Callum a million questions. "Do you live in Denver?" "I do. I moved here last year." "Where did you live before?" "Seattle. That's in Washington State. Why did you move here?" "Because I wanted to, Rowan. Sometimes people move to new places to start over." "Are you married?" The question made Autumn's breath catch. She saw Callum's hands tighten on the steering wheel. "No, I'm not married." "Do you have kids?" The silence that followed was heavy. "Yes," Callum said finally, his voice thick. "I do have kids. 2 daughters." Rowan perked up. "Really? How old are they?" "They're 6, just like you." "That's cool. Do they live in Denver too?" "They do." From the back seat, Autumn could see Callum's eyes in the rearview mirror. Could see the emotion there, the truth he couldn't yet tell. They pulled up in front of Autumn's apartment building on Sherman Street. Callum helped carry Hadley upstairs, while Rowan ran ahead to unlock the door. The apartment looked exactly as they'd left it 5 days ago. Dinner dishes still in the sink, coloring books on the living room floor. Hadley's purple pajamas with stars folded on her bed, waiting for a little girl who'd collapsed before putting them on. Autumn felt tears prick her eyes. Her whole world had changed in this apartment 5 days ago. Callum laid Hadley gently on her bed. "Do you need anything else? Groceries? Medicine? We're okay. Thank you." He nodded. Stood there awkwardly in the small bedroom. "Can I come see them tomorrow?" he asked quietly. Just to check on Hadley's recovery. Make sure she's doing okay. It was an excuse, and they both knew it. But Autumn nodded. "Tomorrow afternoon. Around 3. I'll be here." After he left, Autumn made the girls peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because it was easy and they were all exhausted. She gave Hadley her medication. She helped both girls into pajamas and tucked them into their beds even though it was only 7 in the evening. "Mommy," Rowan said as Autumn was turning off the light. "Dr. Thorne is nice." "He is. Is he going to keep visiting us even though Hadley is better?" Autumn sat on the edge of Rowan's bed. "Would you like that?" "Yeah, he's funny. And he brought me books. Well, we'll see him again soon." "Good." Autumn kissed both her daughters good night and retreated to her own bedroom. She sat on her bed fully dressed and finally let herself fall apart. She cried for the terror of almost losing Hadley, for the shock of seeing Callum after 7 years, for the secrets revealed and the complications ahead, for the life she'd built that was about to change in ways she couldn't control. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number, but she knew who it was before opening it. "This is Callum. Got your number from Hadley's chart. Hope that's okay. Just wanted to make sure you all made it home safe." Autumn stared at the message for a long time before responding. "We're home. Everyone's asleep. Thank you for driving us." The response came immediately. "Thank you for letting me be part of this. I know it's not easy for you. I'll see you tomorrow at 3. Autumn set her phone down and lay back on her bed, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow she would start figuring out how to co-parent with her ex-husband, how to tell her daughters the truth, how to build something new from the ruins of their past. But tonight, she just closed her eyes and tried to breathe. Callum showed up at Autumn's apartment at exactly 3 o'clock the next day. He stood in the doorway holding a bag from the grocery store and looking nervous in a way Autumn had never seen him. Callum had always been confident, self-assured, the kind of man who walked into a room and commanded attention. But standing in her doorway about to spend time with the daughters he'd just discovered, he looked terrified. "I brought snacks," he said, holding up the bag. "I wasn't sure what they liked, so I kind of bought everything." Autumn stepped aside to let him in. "The girls are in the living room. Hadley's supposed to be resting, but she's going stir-crazy. That's a good sign. Means she's feeling better." They walked into the small living room where both girls sat on the floor surrounded by coloring books. Hadley looked up when Callum entered, and her whole face lit up. "Dr. Thorne, you came back. I told you I would. How are you feeling?" "Better. My head doesn't hurt as much." "Good. That means you're healing well." Callum sat down on the floor next to them, his long legs folding awkwardly. He started unpacking the grocery bag. "I brought chocolate chip cookies and apple slices and string cheese in juice boxes. I didn't know what you liked." "I like all of those things," Rowan said seriously. "Me too," Hadley added. Autumn watched from the doorway as Callum handed out snacks. Watched him admire the pictures the girls were coloring. Watched him ask questions about their favorite colors and their friends at school and what they wanted to be when they grew up. Hadley wanted to be a soccer player. Rowan wanted to be a teacher. Callum listened to every word like it was the most important information he'd ever received. After an hour, Hadley started to look tired. Autumn intervened. "Okay, girls, Hadley needs to rest. Why don't you both go to your room and play quietly for a bit?" "But Dr. Thorne just got here," Hadley protested. "I'll come back," Callum said. "I promise. Tomorrow if your mom says it's okay." Both girls looked at Autumn with hopeful eyes. "We'll see." After the girls retreated to their bedroom, Callum helped Autumn clean up the snack wrappers. They worked in awkward silence, both hyper-aware of the other's presence in the small kitchen. "Thank you for letting me come," Callum said finally. "They're your daughters. You have a right to see them." "Do I, though?" "Legally, I have no rights at all. I'm not on their birth certificates. I never paid child support. I never even knew they existed." Autumn set down the paper towel she'd been holding. "Do you want to be on their birth certificates?" The question seemed to surprise him. Can I be? After all this time, we'd have to go through the court, establish paternity. It's not complicated, but it takes time. I want that. I want them to have my name if you're okay with it. Autumn leaned against the counter. Their last name is Vale. My last name. Changing it would confuse them. Not changing it. Just adding mine. Hyphenated. Vale Thorn. The name sounded strange, but also right somehow. Let me think about it. Callum nodded. He seemed to struggle with something, then spoke carefully. I want to help financially. I know I can't make up for 6 years, but I can help now. Let me contribute to their expenses. Daycare, clothes, food, whatever they need. Autumn's pride bristled. We're doing fine. I know you are. You've done an incredible job, but you shouldn't have to do it alone anymore. I've been alone for 6 years. I'm used to it. Well, you're not alone now. They stared at each other across the small kitchen. So much history between them, so much hurt, but also something else, something tentative and fragile, the possibility of something new. Callum came back the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. He showed up every afternoon at 3 o'clock. Sometimes he brought books. Sometimes he brought puzzles or games. Once he brought a soccer ball and spent an hour in the park teaching Rowan how to dribble while Hadley watched from a bench, still not cleared for physical activity. The girls started asking about him when he wasn't there. Is Dr. Thorne coming today? When will we see him again? Can he have dinner with us? 2 weeks after Hadley's discharge, Autumn and Callum sat on her small balcony after the girls had gone to bed. The Denver night was cool. Autumn settling into the city with crisp air and the smell of fallen leaves. We need to tell them, Callum said. Autumn had been avoiding this conversation. I know. When? Soon. They're starting to get attached to you. They need to understand who you really are. I'm scared. The admission surprised Autumn. Of what? That they'll be angry. That they'll hate me for not being there. That they'll ask questions I don't have good answers for. They're 6, Callum. They won't ask complicated questions. But they'll ask why. Why wasn't I there when they were babies? Why don't they have pictures of me? Why didn't I come to their birthdays? And we'll tell them the truth in a way they can understand. That we made mistakes. That grown-ups sometimes make choices they regret. That you didn't know about them, but you're here now and you're not going anywhere. Callum was quiet for a long moment. How do we do it? Just sit them down and say, surprise, that nice doctor is your father? Despite everything, Autumn smiled. Something like that. They decided to tell the girls the following Saturday. Callum came over at 10 in the morning. Autumn made pancakes, a weekend tradition, and they all ate together at the small kitchen table. Afterward, Autumn suggested they all sit in the living room. Girls, we need to talk to you about something important. Both Hadley and Rowan looked up, their expressions curious but not worried. You know Dr. Thorne has been visiting a lot lately. They nodded. There's a reason for that. A special reason. Autumn looked at Callum. He was pale but nodded for her to continue. Dr. Thorne isn't just your doctor. He's someone very important. He's your father. The words hung in the air. Both girls stared at them, processing. Our daddy, Hadley said finally. Yes, but you said our daddy lived far away, Rowan said, her voice confused. I thought he did, but he's here now. He moved to Denver last year, and we didn't know. And when you got sick, Hadley, and we went to the hospital, that's when I saw him again for the first time in a long time. Why didn't he know about us? Hadley asked. That's complicated, baby. Grown-up stuff. But the important thing is, he knows now, and he wants to be your dad. He wants to be part of your life. Both girls looked at Callum. He cleared his throat. I know this is confusing, and I'm sorry I wasn't there when you were babies. I didn't know about you, but now I do, and I love you very much, and I want to be your dad if you'll let me. Do we call you Dad? Rowan asked. You can call me whatever feels right. Dad, Daddy, Callum, whatever you want. Hadley stood up and walked over to Callum. She studied his face seriously. Do we look like you? Callum's voice was thick. Yes. You both look a lot like me. Rowan came over too. She reached up and touched Callum's curly hair, so much like her own. We have the same hair. We do. And the same eyes. Yes. Okay, Hadley said matter-of-factly. You can be our dad. Just like that, the tension broke. Callum pulled both girls into a hug, and Autumn saw tears streaming down his face. Over the next few weeks, they established a routine. The girls stayed with Autumn most of the time but spent every Saturday with Callum. He'd pick them up in the morning and they'd spend the day together. Park trips, museum visits. Once they went to the Denver Zoo and Rowan talked about the penguins for 3 days straight. Callum found an apartment just 4 blocks away from Autumn's place, a 2-bedroom on Logan Street. He let the girls help decorate one of the bedrooms. They picked out bedding with stars and moons. Hadley chose posters of soccer players. Rowan filled a bookshelf with her favorite books. They started staying overnight on Saturdays. Then Saturday and Sunday. By December, they had a regular schedule. Tuesday and Thursday nights with Callum. Every other weekend. Holidays split between parents. It should have felt strange, this sudden CO parenting arrangement with a man who'd been a stranger 3 months ago. But it didn't. It felt natural. Easy. Autumn and Callum talked every day. Coordinating schedules, discussing the girls' needs, making decisions together. They had a shared calendar on their phones. They texted constantly. Hadley scraped her knee at the park. Put a bandage on it, but she's fine. Rowan wants to sign up for art classes. Thoughts? Parent-teacher conferences are next week. Can you make it? The girls' follow-up appointment with neurosurgery was in early December. Callum came with them even though it was Autumn's day with the girls. They sat in the waiting room together, a family to anyone who looked at them. When the neurosurgeon came out with good news, clear scans, complete recovery, they celebrated with ice cream even though it was freezing outside. For the first time in 6 years, Autumn wasn't parenting alone. She had someone to call when Hadley had a nightmare, someone to ask advice when Rowan came home from school upset because a friend had been mean to her, someone to share the load, and slowly, carefully, the walls she'd built around her heart started to crack. It started with small things. The way Callum always brought coffee when he picked up the girls, remembering she took it with cream and no sugar. The way he texted her funny things the girls said during their time with him because he knew she'd want to know. The way he looked at her sometimes when he thought she wasn't paying attention. One Saturday evening in mid-December, Autumn's friend Paige came over after Callum had picked up the girls for the weekend. Paige was the friend who'd brought her purse to the hospital who, Dee listened to the whole impossible story of Callum's reappearance. They sat on Autumn's couch with wine and Chinese takeout. "So, how's it going with Dr. Dreamy?" Paige asked. "Don't call him that." "Why not?" "He's a doctor and he's dreamy." "It's accurate." Autumn rolled her eyes. "It's going fine. The girls love him. He's good with them. And how are you doing with it?" "Fine." Paige gave her a look. "You're drinking wine on a Saturday night with me instead of doing literally anything else. That's not fine. The girls are with Callum. This is my free time. When's the last time you went on a date?" Autumn couldn't remember. Years. Before the girls were born, probably. "Exactly. You need to get back out there. I have 2 6-year-olds and an ex-husband who just came back into my life. I don't have time for dating." "Or," Paige said, drawing out the word, "you could date the ex-husband who you're clearly still in love with." "I'm not in love with Callum." "Please. I see how you talk about him, how your face changes when his name comes up. That's not love. That's just history. History, present, and possibly future if you'd stop being so stubborn." Autumn took a long drink of wine. "Even if I wanted to, which I don't, it would be too complicated. We're co-parenting. We can't mess that up by trying to be something more and failing. What if you didn't fail? We failed once already. You were kids then. You're different people now." Autumn knew Paige was right. She and Callum were different. She'd grown up in the years of single parenting. He'd grown up taking care of his dying mother and building a career. They weren't the same scared 20-somethings who'd fallen apart under pressure. But that didn't mean trying again was smart. The week before Christmas, Callum asked if he could take the girls to see his mother's sister in Colorado Springs. His Aunt Diane wanted to meet her great nieces. "Of course," Autumn said. "When?" "The 23rd. We'd drive down that morning and come back the 24th. I know it's close to Christmas, but I thought before things get too hectic with the holidays. That's fine. The girls will love it. Do you want to come?" The question surprised her. "To meet your aunt?" "She wants to meet you too. She's heard all about you." "What exactly have you told her about me?" "The truth, that we were married, that we got divorced, that you raised our daughters alone for 6 years, that we're co-parenting now, and she wants to meet me after all that." She's not judging. She just wants to know the mother of her great nieces. So on December 23rd, Autumn found herself in Callum's car heading south, toward Colorado Springs with two excited 6-year-olds in the back seat. Aunt Diane lived in a small ranch house with a yard full of garden gnomes and wind chimes. She was a woman in her 70s with Callum's same curly hair gone silver and warm eyes that crinkled when she smiled. She swept the girls into hugs the moment they arrived. "Look at you two. Absolutely beautiful. You look just like your daddy when he was little." She made them lunch. Grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup and Christmas cookies shaped like snowmen. The girls ate and chattered, and Aunt Diane listened to every word like it was precious. After lunch, she showed the girls her collection of nutcrackers, dozens of them lining shelves in her living room. The girls were entranced. While the girls examined nutcrackers, Aunt Diane pulled Autumn aside into the kitchen. "I'm glad you came," she said, putting the kettle on for tea. "I wanted to meet the woman who raised those beautiful girls. Thank you for having us. Callum's told me a lot about you, about everything that happened." Autumn felt defensive walls go up. "I'm sure he has. Don't bristle, dear. I'm not here to judge. Life is messy and complicated, and people make choices the best they can with the information they have. I kept his children from him for 6 years, and he chose his career over his marriage. Seems to me you both made mistakes. Question is what you do now. We're parenting. We're doing our best for the girls." Aunt Diane poured hot water over tea bags. "Is that all you're doing?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, I see the way he looks at you, and I see the way you look at him when you think no one's watching." Autumn's cheeks flushed. "I don't know what you're talking about. I've been alive 73 years, dear. I know what longing looks like." They sat down at the small kitchen table with their tea. Through the doorway, they could see Callum on the floor with the girls, making the nutcrackers dance and doing silly voices. The girls' laughter filled the house. "He loves you," Aunt Diane said quietly. "He always has. Even when he was in Baltimore, even when you were divorced, he talked about you, wondered if he'd made the wrong choice. Then why didn't he come back? Pride, fear, the same things that kept you from telling him about the girls." Autumn watched Callum with their daughters, watched the gentleness in his hands, the joy on his face, the complete attention he gave them. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "How to be his CO parent and not want more. So want more. It's not that simple, isn't it? You love him. He loves you. You have 2 beautiful children together. Seems pretty simple to me. What if we try and it doesn't work? What if we mess up what we've built for the girls? What if you don't try and spend the rest of your lives wondering what if?" The question sat heavy in Autumn's chest all the way home from Colorado Springs. Christmas came and went. The girls split the holiday between parents. Christmas Eve with Autumn, Christmas morning with Callum, Christmas dinner together at Autumn's apartment. It was the first time Autumn had hosted Christmas for anyone in years. She made a turkey that was slightly dry and mashed potatoes that were slightly lumpy. Callum brought wine and perfectly roasted vegetables and a chocolate cake from an expensive bakery. They ate together at her small table. They pulled crackers and wore paper crowns and read terrible jokes that made the girls groan. They watched the girls play with their new toys. They cleaned up the kitchen together, moving around each other in the small space with surprising ease. After the girls went to bed, they sat on the couch with wine and Christmas music playing softly. "This was nice," Callum said. "All of us together." "Yeah, it was." They sat in comfortable silence. The lights on the Christmas tree cast colored shadows across the room. "Autumn," Callum said, "can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you ever think about us? Not who we were, but who we could be now." Autumn's heart hammered in her chest. "Sometimes, me too. All the time, actually." "Callum, we can't." "Why not?" "Because we're finally getting this CO parenting thing right. We can't mess it up. What if we don't mess it up? What if we make it better? Or we try and it falls apart, and then the girls lose the stability we've built for them?" Callum set down his wine glass. "Look at me." Autumn turned to face him. "I'm not the same man I was 7 years ago. I don't put my career above everything else anymore. I learned that lesson the hard way when my mom got sick, and I realized all the prestige in the world doesn't matter if you're alone. You're not the same woman either. You're stronger. You've built a whole life. You don't need me. That's why I want to try this. Not because either of us needs the other, but because we choose each other, because we're better together than apart." Autumn felt tears prick her eyes. What if you're wrong? Then we deal with it like adults and keep co-parenting, because the girls come first. Always. But Autumn, I don't think I'm wrong. I think we got a second chance that most people don't get, and I don't want to waste it. He reached out and took her hand. She didn't pull away. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too. But I'm more scared of not trying. They sat there holding hands on her couch while Christmas music played and colored. Lights twinkled, and in the next room, their daughters slept peacefully. Autumn took a breath. Okay, let's try. Slowly. We go on dates. We get to know each other again as the people we are now, and we keep it separate from the girls until we know it's solid. Callum smiled, the kind of smile that lit up his whole face. I can do slow. Their first date was 2 days after Christmas. Paige babysat the girls. Callum picked Autumn up at 7 wearing dark jeans and a button-down shirt that made his eyes look impossibly warm. He took her to a small Italian restaurant in Low-High. They sat at a corner table with candlelight and red wine and talked for 3 hours. Not about the girls, not about the past, about who they were now. Autumn told him about her work at the law firm, about the senior partner who was mentoring her to eventually take the bar exam and become a lawyer herself, about the life she'd built through determination and stubbornness. Callum told her about emergency medicine, about choosing it over neurosurgery because the hours were more flexible, and he'd wanted to be available for his mother, about how he'd discovered he loved the chaos and variety of the ER, the endless puzzle of diagnosis, the immediate gratification of helping people in crisis. They talked about books and music and politics, about where they'd traveled and where they wanted to go, about dreams they'd given up and dreams they still held. It felt like falling in love for the first time, except better because they weren't kids anymore. They knew the cost of choices. They knew that love alone wasn't enough without effort and communication and commitment. Callum walked her to her door at 11. They stood in the hallway outside her apartment, and the air felt charged with possibility. I had a really good time, Autumn said. Me too. Can we do it again? Yes. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His lips met hers softly, carefully, a question more than a statement. Autumn kissed him back, and it felt like coming home. They dated through January and into February. Dinner dates and movie dates and one memorable afternoon at an art museum, where they got kicked out for laughing too loud in the modern art section. They kept it quiet from the girls at first, but kids notice everything. Mommy, why are you wearing lipstick? Hadley asked one Saturday when Callum was picking them up. Am I not allowed to wear lipstick? You never do. Well, maybe I should start. Rowan studied her mother with those too observant eyes. Are you and Daddy boyfriend and girlfriend? The question hung in the air. Autumn looked at Callum, who was trying not to smile. We're dating, Autumn said finally. Do you know what that means? It means you like each other, Rowan said. Yes. Are you going to get married again? Hadley asked. We're not thinking that far ahead. We're just spending time together and seeing what happens. If you got married, we could all live in the same house, Hadley said. That would be cool. Maybe someday. But for now, things stay the way they are. You still have 2 homes. We're just also going on dates sometimes. The girls seemed satisfied with that answer. By March, they were spending more time together as a family. Saturday afternoons at the park. Sunday morning pancakes at Callum's apartment. One perfect weekend, they drove up to Rocky Mountain National Park and hiked. Easy trails with the girls running ahead, burning off endless energy. They found a rhythm. Co-parenting that was also partnership. Romance that was also friendship. Something that felt solid and real, and nothing like the fragile thing they'd had 7 years ago. But they still hadn't told the girls they were serious. Hadn't made plans for a future beyond the next date or the next family outing. Until the night Autumn got scared. It was late April. She and Callum were at his apartment. The girls were asleep in their room. They'd been watching a movie, but had ended up just talking, curled together on his couch. I love you, Callum said suddenly. I need you to know that. Autumn's chest tightened. I love you too. I want this to be forever. I want us to be a family. Not just co-parents, but a real family. Callum, we are a family. You know what I mean. I want to marry you again. I want us to live together. I want to wake up every morning and know you're there. The panic hit Autumn like a wave. She sat up, pulling away. We can't. Why not? Because we tried forever before and it didn't work. We were different people. What if we're not different enough? What if we fall apart again? Callum reached for her hand, but she stood up, pacing his living room. I can't lose you again, Autumn. I can't build a life with you and have it fall apart. The girls can't go through that. So, your solution is to never fully commit? To keep one foot out the door just in case? That's not what I'm doing, isn't it? We've been dating for 4 months. We love each other. We have children together. But you won't even consider moving forward because you're terrified. Of course I'm terrified. You left me once, Callum. You chose your career over us. What's to stop you from doing it again? The words came out sharp and cruel. Callum flinched like she'd hit him. I was 27 years old and stupid, he said quietly. I didn't leave because I didn't love you. I left because I didn't know how to choose between the two things I wanted most. And I've regretted it every single day since. That doesn't change the fact that you left. And you kept my children from me for 6 years. Should I hold that against you forever too? The truth of it hit Autumn hard. They were both holding onto old wounds, using them as shields against new hurt. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. How to trust this. Callum crossed the room and took her hands. You do it one day at a time. You wake up and choose me. And I wake up and choose you. Over and over until the fear gets smaller and the trust gets bigger. What if it doesn't work? Then we deal with it. But Autumn, we're not going to know unless we try. Really try. Not this halfway thing where we're together, but you've got an escape route planned. Autumn looked up at him, saw the love in his eyes, the frustration, the fear that matched her own. I'm so scared of losing you. I'm scared too, but I'm more scared of looking back in 20 years and realizing I let you go because I was too afraid to hold on. They stood in his living room, holding hands, the future uncertain but possible. Okay, Autumn said finally. Okay, let's really try. If you're loving this story, if you're rooting for Autumn and Callum to make it work this time, do me a favor. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling me what you think, and share this video with someone who believes in second chances, because this story is about to get even better. In June, Callum sat Autumn down at her kitchen table with a serious expression. We need to talk about something. Those words never led anywhere good. Autumn's stomach dropped. Okay. He pulled out his phone and showed her an email. It was from Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. An offer letter, Chief of Emergency Medicine, a prestigious position with a salary that made Autumn's eyes widen. They offered me this job. Autumn couldn't breathe. Here it was, the moment she'd been terrified of, the choice between her and his career. History repeating itself. Are you taking it? Callum looked at her like she'd lost her mind. No, of course not. It's a huge opportunity. I don't care. My daughters live in Denver. You live in Denver. I'm not leaving. Callum, this is Chief of Emergency Medicine at Mount Sinai. This is the kind of position people dream about. And 7 years ago, I would have taken it without a second thought. But I'm not that person anymore. I know what matters. And it's not a title or a salary or professional prestige. It's waking up and having breakfast with my daughters. It's coaching Hadley's soccer team and reading with Rowan before bed. It's you. You could regret this. You could resent me for being the reason you stayed. I won't, because you're not the reason I'm staying. I'm the reason I'm staying. This is my choice, and I'm choosing my family. Autumn felt tears running down her face. When did you get the offer? 3 weeks ago. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to see that I could turn it down without drama or second guessing. I wanted you to know that you can trust me. That when I say you and the girls are my priority, I mean it. Autumn launched herself at him, wrapping her arms around his neck. He caught her, holding her tight. I love you, she said against his shoulder. I love you so much. I love you too. And I'm not going anywhere. Not New York, not Baltimore, not anywhere. I'm staying right here. That night, after they'd made love and lay tangled together in Autumn's bed, Callum traced patterns on her shoulder. Move in with me. What? My apartment is bigger than yours. The girls already have a room there. We're together all the time anyway. It makes sense. Callum, that's a big step. I know, but I'm ready for big steps. Are you? Autumn thought about it, about merging their lives completely, about giving up the safety of her own space, about trusting him to stay. Yes, she said. Yes, I'm ready. They told the girls the next morning. Both girls reacted with pure joy. We all get to live together? Hadley asked. Yes. In the same house? The same apartment, but yes. Rowan threw her arms around both of them. This is the best day ever. They spent July packing up Autumn's apartment. 6 years of life in a small 2-bedroom. So many memories, but also so much struggle and loneliness. Autumn was ready to leave it behind. They moved into Callum's apartment in early August. It was bigger, with room for all of them. The girls' bedroom got redecorated with input from both of them. Half soccer posters, half bookshelves. A compromise that made both girls happy. Living together was an adjustment. Learning each other's routines, navigating shared space, small arguments about dishes in the sink and who forgot to buy milk. But also joy. Waking up together, making breakfast as a family. Bedtime stories where Callum did the voices and Autumn cuddled the girls. Coming home to each other instead of to empty apartments. One night in late August, after the girls were asleep, Autumn found Callum on the balcony. He was staring out at the Denver skyline, lost in thought. You okay? She asked, sliding her arms around him from behind. More than okay. I was just thinking about how different my life is now compared to a year ago. A year ago tomorrow was the night you rushed Hadley to the ER. I know. 1 year since everything changed. Do you ever regret it? The way it happened. Finding out about the girls that way? Never. I regret missing their first 6 years. But I don't regret a single moment since that night. He turned in her arms to face her. Marry me, he said. Autumn's breath caught. What? Marry me. Again. For real this time. Not because we're young and impulsive, but because we've grown up and we've chosen each other through everything. Marry me because I want to spend the rest of my life waking up next to you. Because I want to be your husband and the father of our daughters and whatever else comes. We're already living together. We're already a family. I know. But I want to make it official. I want everyone to know you're mine and I'm yours. He pulled a small box from his pocket, opened it to reveal a simple diamond ring. I've been carrying this around for 2 weeks, trying to find the perfect moment. But then I realize every moment with you is perfect. Autumn looked at the ring, at Callum's face, at the hope and love and certainty in his eyes. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll marry you. Callum slipped a ring on her finger and kissed her under the Denver stars. They told the girls the next morning at breakfast. We have some news, Autumn said. Callum and I are getting married. Hadley dropped her fork. Really? Really? Both girls erupted in cheers and questions. Can we be flower girls? When is the wedding? Will we wear fancy dresses? Where will we live? We'll still live here, Callum said, laughing. And yes, you can absolutely be flower girls. They planned a small wedding for October. Just family and close friends in Autumn's Aunt Beatrice's backyard. Autumn's only remaining family, Callum's Aunt Diane, a few colleagues from the hospital and the law firm, the girls' teachers, simple and intimate. Nothing like the courthouse wedding they'd had at 23. This time they knew what they were promising. This time they understood the weight of forever. The morning of the wedding, Autumn stood in her aunt's guest room wearing a simple white dress. Not a traditional wedding gown, but something elegant and perfect for an afternoon garden ceremony. Paige helped her with her hair while the girls ran around in their matching flower girl dresses. You ready for this? Paige asked. More ready than I've ever been for anything. No cold feet, no last-minute panic. Autumn looked at her reflection, thought about how far she'd come. Single mother struggling to survive to this. To a partner who showed up every day. To daughters who were loved by both parents. To a second chance that felt like grace. No cold feet, she said. Just excitement. The ceremony was perfect. Autumn walked down a makeshift aisle in her aunt's garden to where Callum stood under an arch covered in flowers. He wore a dark suit, and his eyes were already wet with tears. Hadley and Rowan walked ahead of her, scattering rose petals and giggling. They stood beside Callum as Autumn joined him under the arch. The officiant was brief. They'd written their own vows. Callum went first. Autumn, 7 years ago I stood with you and made promises I didn't know how to keep. I was young and scared, and I thought love was enough. But love isn't enough without choice. And today I'm choosing you. I'm choosing to show up every day. To put you and our daughters first. To build a life that matters more than any career or opportunity. I'm choosing forever, and this time I know what that means. Autumn's turn. Callum, I spent 6 years convinced I had to do everything alone, that needing someone was weakness, that trusting someone to stay was foolish. But you taught me that strength isn't about going it alone. It's about building something with someone who shows up. You've shown up every day since the moment you saved Hadley's life. You've proven that second chances are real, that people can grow and change, that forever is possible if both people keep choosing it. So, I choose you, today and every day after. The officiant pronounced them married. Callum kissed Autumn like she was his whole world. The girls cheered louder than anyone. The reception was in the same garden. String lights and simple food, and a playlist of songs they both loved. They danced together while the girls ran around with other children. They cut a small cake. They laughed with friends. As the sun set and the lights came on, Autumn found herself standing with Callum watching their daughters dance. "We did it," she said. "We did. We built something beautiful out of something broken." She leaned into him, his arms solid around her waist. That night, after the wedding, after tucking the girls into bed in Aunt Beatrice's guest room, Callum and Autumn stood on the back porch. "I have something to tell you," Autumn said. Callum turned to her, concerned. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between them. Callum's eyes went wide. "You're pregnant?" "About 8 weeks. I wanted to be sure before I told you." "We're having a baby?" "Yes." Callum whooped with joy, picking Autumn up and spinning her around. She laughed, holding onto him. When he set her down, his hand immediately went to her still flat stomach. "A baby. We get to do this together from the beginning this time. Every moment, every midnight feeding and diaper change and first smile. I'm going to be there for everything. I know you will." They stood together in the darkness, married again, starting over, building forever one day at a time. 6 months later, they moved into a house. A real house with a yard in Park Hill. 4 bedrooms because the baby was coming in April and they needed more space. The girls each got their own room. They decorated Hadley's with soccer themes, Rowan's with bookshelves and a reading nook. The nursery they decorated together, all 4 of them, in soft yellows and greens. On April 9th, Autumn went into labor. Callum drove her to Denver General, where it had all started, where he'd saved Hadley's life, where they'd found each other again. This time he wasn't the ER doctor on duty. He was the terrified husband holding his wife's hand through contractions. 12 hours later, they welcomed a son. Thomas Callum Thorne, 7 pounds, 6 ounces, perfect. Callum held his son for the first time and cried. Autumn watched him, this man who'd missed the first 6 years of his daughters' lives, getting to experience every moment of his son's first minutes. The girls came to meet their brother that afternoon. They were 7 now, tall and confident, and so excited to be big sisters. "He's so tiny," Rowan whispered, touching Thomas's small hand. "Were we that tiny?" Hadley asked. "Even tinier," Callum said. "You both were born early, but you were just as perfect." They took Thomas home 2 days later, brought him into the house they'd built together, introduced him to the life they'd created. Those first months were exhausting, middle of the night feedings and diaper changes, and the girls adjusting to not being the center of attention. But they did it together. Callum took paternity leave. Autumn worked from home. They tag-teamed everything. When one was overwhelmed, the other stepped up. And slowly, Thomas grew. First smiles, first laughs, first time sleeping through the night. The girls adored him. Hadley made up songs to sing when he cried. Rowan read him stories from her chapter books even though he was too young to understand. One night when Thomas was 6 months old, Autumn found Callum in the nursery. He was holding their sleeping son, just watching him breathe. "You okay?" she whispered. "I was just thinking about everything I missed with the girls, all the moments like this. And I'm so grateful I get to have them now, with him, with them as they grow up. I don't get those 6 years back, but I get every moment going forward." Autumn wrapped her arms around both of them. "We get forever," she said. "That's pretty good. That's everything." They stood in the nursery of their home, their family complete, their second chance fully realized. Sometimes broken things, when put back together, are stronger than they were before. Sometimes people who lose each other find their way back better than they were. Sometimes love is about more than falling. It's about choosing every day to stay. Autumn and Callum had fallen apart at 27, but at 34, they'd built something that would last. A family formed not by accident but by choice, by showing up, by forgiveness, by second chances that turned into forever. The night of that conversation in the nursery, after Thomas was asleep and the girls were in bed, Callum and Autumn sat on their back porch. The Denver night was warm, early October, settling over the city. "Do you remember what today is?" Callum asked. Autumn thought. "October 15th. 2 years ago today, I rushed Hadley to the ER. 2 years since everything changed." She leaned against him. "I was so terrified that night, of losing Hadley, of seeing you, of everything falling apart. And instead, everything came together. Not right away. It took time. The best things usually do." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood settling in for the night. Inside their house, their children slept safely. Their family, their forever. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if Hadley hadn't gotten sick that night?" Autumn asked. "If we'd never run into each other?" "All the time. I think about how I might have lived my whole life not knowing I had daughters. How you might have kept going alone. How the girls might never have known their father. That timeline felt impossible now, like it belonged to different people in a different universe." "I'm glad we got this one," Autumn said. "Me too, even though it started with terror and trauma, and your daughter almost dying. Maybe that's the only way it could have happened. Maybe we needed something that dramatic to break through all the walls we'd built." Callum kissed the top of her head. "However it happened, I'm grateful." They went inside together, checked on all 3 children sleeping peacefully, and went to bed in the house they'd made a home. And every day after, they woke up and chose each other. They chose their family. They chose forever. Because second chances, when you fight for them, when you show up for them, when you choose them every single day, they become first chances at the life you were always meant to have. This is the story of Autumn Vale and Callum Thorne. 2 people who fell in love too young, fell apart under pressure, and found their way back to each other through the daughters they created. It's a story about secrets and truth, about fear and courage, about the kind of love that survives everything because both people refuse to give up on it. It's a story that teaches us that the mistakes we make don't have to define us, that the choices we regret can be lessons that lead us to better choices, that people can change and grow and become the partners they weren't capable of being before. It teaches us that family isn't just about biology or marriage certificates or living under the same roof. It's about showing up. It's about choosing to love even when it's hard. It's about second chances and third chances and as many chances as it takes to get it right. Most importantly, it teaches us that sometimes the worst moments of our lives, the moments when everything seems to be falling apart, are actually the moments when everything is falling into place, when the universe is rearranging itself to give us what we've needed all along. That night in the ER 2 years ago, when Autumn's world was ending, and Callum appeared like an answer to a prayer she didn't know she'd prayed, that was the moment their forever really began. Not the courthouse wedding at 23, not the divorce papers signed through lawyers, but that moment when life and death hung in the balance and the only thing that mattered was saving their daughter. Everything after was built on that foundation: the truth, the hard conversations, the choice to try again, the daily decision to show up and love and trust and build. And here's what I want you to take away from this story. If you're sitting there right now thinking about someone you lost, someone you walked away from or who walked away from you, someone you convinced yourself it was too late to reach out to, this story is your sign. It's never too late. People change. Circumstances change. What seemed impossible yesterday might be possible today. But you have to be brave enough to try, brave enough to be honest, brave enough to show up even when you're scared. And if you're the one who's been hurt, who's been left, who's been protecting yourself from more pain by keeping people at arm's length, this story is for you too. Trust is terrifying. Vulnerability is terrifying. But the alternative, spending your life behind walls that keep out hurt but also keep out love, that's even more terrifying. So whatever your story is, whatever brought you here today, I hope you take this message with you. Second chances are real. Growth is possible. Love can survive anything if both people are willing to fight for it. And sometimes the family you build from broken pieces is stronger and more beautiful than anything that was never broken at all. If this story touched your heart, if it made you believe in second chances or think about someone you need to reach out to or remember that growth is possible, do me a favor. Hit that like button right now. Leave a comment telling me your story. Have you ever gotten a second chance? Have you ever been brave enough to try again after failing? Let's build a community of people who believe that broken things can be made beautiful. And share this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear that it's not too late, that change is possible, that love wins when people choose it. Subscribe to Love and Twilights with Dr. Phillips, because we're building something special here. Stories that entertain, but also inspire, that make you feel something real, that remind you what matters. This is Autumn and Callum's story, but it's also yours. It's all of ours. The story of falling down and getting back up, of making mistakes and learning from them, of finding your way home even when you thought you were lost forever. Thank you for being here. Thank you for investing in this story. Thank you for believing that happy endings are possible. Now go out there and write your own second chance story. And when you do, come back and tell me about it. Until next time, remember that love is always worth fighting for. Family is always worth choosing. And second chances are always worth taking. This is Love and Twilights with Dr. Phillips. See you in the next story.